Broadcasting live from Lothal. Good morning, Lothal. It's the Unofficial Star Wars Rebels podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back once again to Good Morning Lothal, the Unofficial Star Wars Rebels podcast. I'm Pete Salas, along with
Rolando Zamora.
How are we doing, Rolly?
I'm very, very, very happy to be back.
Yes.
How are you doing, Pete?
I'm good, man. I'm doing good. Feeling much better since the last time that we spoke, or since the last time I recorded that little intro from the last one. That was like, what, almost 6 weeks ago, maybe? 5 weeks ago?
Yeah.
I'm not sure, something like that. So in that time, yes, in fact, I have had my back surgery. It did happen, and I am feeling a heck of a lot better. I'm still a little, moving a little slow and whatnot. I've got like 8 pillows propping me up right now so I can sit upright. But other than that, it was a complete success. So I credit my doctor, my neurosurgeon. He did a fantastic job. Highly recommended.
Yeah, and it cannot go it can't go understated that first and foremost, I'm happy that you're doing so much better. I told you, like, you messaged me concerned, like, hey, I can't record, and whatever it was during the time, and I basically just told you, don't even worry about it. That's not the priority. As much as we love the show, as much as we love the fans, it's not the priority right now. It's Pete's health. So yeah. I'm super happy that you're doing so much better.
Thank you. I feel so much better. Like, I'm still recovering, like I said, but the initial pain that I was in, that was like keeping me like basically immobile and laying down for the better part of 24 hours a day is gone. So I can't credit that enough. Like the doctors really took care of me up there in San Antonio.
That's awesome. And what a week to come back to Star Wars, right?
Yeah, man. That's why I was pushing myself so we could get back for this week, because this week was a big week. But before we get to that, that's a little sneak preview. Before we get to that, it's been a while, so let me get a little bit more acclimated and onto how to do the show again. But I remember at the top of the show, this is where I'd like to ask you guys to please like, share, subscribe, and rate. I know it's been a while since you've heard from us, but for those of you that may have fallen off just a little bit, welcome back, and invite your friends. Let them know that there's a really cool Star Wars themed podcast that they need to check out. Now it's time where I ask the question, Rolly, what's happening around the galaxy?
Let's see what's happening this week in Star Wars.
So it's no secret, Star Wars Celebration was this weekend. It's actually just wrapping up today as we're talking about it, or as we're recording on a Monday, April 10th. So a lot of exciting news. I think there was more news last year, but I think the news this year was just much more anticipated, groundbreaking.
Yes, it was
new,
more grandiose.
Yeah. There you go. That's the word, grandiose. First and foremost, because it's nearest and dearest to this show, the biggest announcement that everybody was excited for was the Ahsoka trailer finally dropped. And I don't even know how much of it I want to get into, because if we have anybody listening that watches the show with us, brand spanking new, I don't think at this point they held up and waited. I think they continued on and watched, and I hope they did. Probably. Because, yeah, the big drop from that was 2 characters that we've been dying to see. Number one, Sabine Wren, our famous Mandalorian friend who we have not seen in the Mandoverse, that I know all the Rebels fans are waiting for. And then certainly, not to be understated, Thrawn.
Absolutely.
Yes, Grand Admiral Thrawn.
Yep.
And we have not gotten to see him in our viewing of Rebels, but he's there. And yes. I think you guys, if you have not seen him in Rebels, you're going to be very excited to learn more about him, just in time for the Ahsoka show to come out in August of this year. So it's going to get here very soon, guys. So how did you feel watching that trailer?
Dude, it's really cool because I have been kind of, like I said, unplugged. I'm running at like half speed right now. So yes, I knew it was Star Wars Celebration Week. I was keeping up as much as possible. But the one thing that I did not know, and it was almost like it was a throwback for me to like before it was pre-internet time, because I didn't know that on that day the Ahsoka trailer was going to drop. So it was a legitimate surprise for me. I didn't even know that they were going to drop it during Star Wars Celebration. Was that like already pre-known that we were going to get the trailer?
I think for me personally, I anticipated the trailer. I didn't anticipate it day one, and the fact that the celebration was in London this year, everything's 6 hours ahead of us.
Yeah.
So basically, I woke up and the trailer was there, as opposed to me waiting for it to drop like every other show that's movie that has dropped. So I think it added that element to throwback to where we used to just show up to the theater and they finally gave us the trailer for said movie.
Right. It was definitely a surprise. It was definitely a surprise for me. So it was a badass trailer, super fun, gets you hyped for exactly what the show's going to be about, which is basically, it seems like an extension of Rebels in live action. It's a post-Rebels show, yes. Which is going to be really cool. So I was not expecting to see even a glimpse of Thrawn, and they kept you waiting because they only showed the back of his head, which is really, really like an ominous kind of a look. And so I'm really, really interested to see what the final product is going to look like. But we got Sabine, we got Chop, we got Hera, we got a little like, hologram that may or may not have been Ezra. So that's definitely Ezra. so much Rebels goodness in that Ahsoka trailer, and it was just that's got to be the top of the celebration list so far. So pretty much. And just to confirm before we move on, it was confirmed at Celebration that Lars Mikkelsen is playing Thrawn, who is the voice of Thrawn in Rebels. So I'm super excited for that. Honestly, for the months leading up to it, sorry, my glasses keep fogging up for some reason, but for the months, getting heated talking about it. I am, dude. I'm getting passionate about Star Wars. I haven't felt that in a while. But whenever the discussion would come up in any of the Star Wars posts or whatever, and people would get into it and who should play him, and just different people were being suggested, I would always come back and I would say it's got to be Lars. Why not? Why not him? He's an excellent actor. He is the actual voice of him. He might be a little old to play him or whatever, but he's basically going to be pretty much CGI. Anybody who knows the character obviously knows he's blue, so it's it was the perfect choice. And they are just fan service all the way. That's all I can say about Dave Filoni. So really excited. Absolutely. And talking about Dave Filoni, that takes us to the next big announcement, which I was totally blown away with. And that's that we're getting 3 brand new movies, but more specifically, they gave us the timeline basically in chronological order of, the dawn of the first Jedi all the way to the new Jedi Order. And the 3 movies in particular that were confirmed is there is going to be a Dawn of the Jedi titled movie where basically we touch on the very first Force wielders. So that's something brand new. It predates the Old Republic. A lot of you are familiar with the Knights of the Old Republic, which I also am, waiting for them to finally get into at some point. I think this is the beginning of that. And then, sure enough, we flash forward, and this was the big announcement regarding Dave Filoni. Dave Filoni is actually finally going to get to direct a movie, and that movie is basically going to culminate all the events that we've been seeing in the Mandoverse, which consists of The Mandalorian, The Book of Boba Fett, and Ahsoka. Excellent. That's really badass. And then the surprise news, this one might be a bit controversial. I'm excited for it though. The 3rd movie is going to be about the new Jedi Order, and they confirmed she was there. Daisy Ridley is back as Rey Skywalker. Awesome. So that movie is going to be dated 15 years after the Rise of Skywalker, and I'm just really excited to have her character back, because I'm also confident. I'm hopeful, but I'm very confident that also means John Boyega will probably come back, even though he's said no, because I can't imagine another person being her first student before Finn. Mm-hmm. That's a good point. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. I did see recently that he had kind of softened on his outlook on his what's it called, his experience during the Star Wars films. He ended it on not such a great note as far as the years after the movies came out. He was a little down on it, but it's to be expected. I mean, his character did get the shaft pretty much, but I'm really glad to see that he's coming, or I'm glad to speculate along with you that there's a good chance that he could be back. Yeah, definitely.
And then also at Celebration, we got some obvious news that we know is coming, but I just want to reemphasize it because they did give us some dates specifically to get hyped up about. We got Andor season 2 confirmation, August of next year, 2024. So it's going to be a while, but I think we have a lot to distract us until then.
Right.
We also got, this one's a bit of a downer, as much as it is a hype. Bad Batch season 3 will be the final season of the Bad Batch, and that's going to be next year also in 2024. But they actually worded it in a way that said this is the final season for this team. So people are already speculating that means there's going to be like a handoff to Rex. That there's going to be continuation of that. That's fan spec, but you know, Dave Filoni's always been clever with the way he words things, so I'm pretty certain the rest of the Star Wars team is just going to follow suit. Right.
And in our absence, Bad Batch season 2 has come and gone basically. So
yeah.
we didn't get to talk about it as much as we normally would have. But it had its ups and downs. I guess we were halfway through by the time we stopped recording, and we were kind of on a this is not such a great season. You know, there's a couple of filler episodes that were boring, that weren't so great. But I think it really picked up towards the end of it. I really, especially that mid-season kind of a two-parter thing. That was a really cool, like, kind of get you over that hump, and then like it took off towards the end of the season. So I was happy with the way it ended.
Yeah, ultimately I was happy with it also. So waiting for season 3 to get all my questions answered, since I know I have to get them answered since it's the final season.
Right.
All right. And to wrap up Celebration, this one was a bit of a downer for me too, because I know we've always spoken about, hey, we're going to make it to Celebration at some point. So this one was a double punch to the to the nads, so to say. Number one, there is no Celebration next year. There's no Star Wars Celebration in 2024. It's being saved for 2025. However, it is going to be in Japan in 2025.
It keeps eluding us and getting further and further away.
I know, right? I feel like the one chance we had to go is to that one in Orlando, and it was just like we were kind of barely getting back into it. And I guess we're just gonna have to be a little bit more patient with it, unless I start, saving every penny to make a trip in 2 years. But realistically, I can experience it from home vicariously through everybody that is there, and then when it's more feasible for me to go to one here stateside, then I'll go.
Or dream big, Rolly. If you make it to Japan, I will be there with you via FaceTime.
There you go. All right, so there was a lot of stuff that happened in Celebration. I'm sure in the coming weeks we'll continue to talk about it. Those were all the major standout points. I want to get to some birthdays since we missed so many important ones during our hiatus. First and foremost, Keira Knightley, March 26th. She plays Save, who is Padme's decoy in The Phantom Menace. You guys also might remember her from Pirates of the Caribbean, another one of her famous roles.
Right, and it was years after that I actually realized that she was in it. I didn't know that till a very, very long time after that.
Yeah, same. Next on the list, we have Julian Glover, March 27th. He plays General Veers in The Empire Strikes Back. You might remember him as the general that's basically leading the attack on the Battle of Hoth.
Right.
Next on our list, Amy Sedaris, March 29th. She plays Peli Motto in The Mandalorian. She is the cringy mechanic that's working on Tatooine. Yeah, she's always making some strange comments about her relations with Jawas.
But she is in love with little Grogu, so
yes,
she's got that motherly instinct inside her nonetheless.
Yeah, definitely. Big one here, Ewan McGregor, March 31st. He plays none other but fucking Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Absolutely.
To be specific, the younger Kenobi from the prequel trilogy and the self-titled series. This one is cool because I didn't notice it in every single episode of the Bad Batch that we've been watching. Rhea Perlman, March 31st.
You didn't know that was her?
No, I did not know it was her. You call me completely oblivious. She plays Sid in the Bad Batch, both season 1 and 2.
Right. And you would know her as Carla from Cheers back in the day.
Yes.
And
yeah.
she's been in a ton of things, but she's also been Danny DeVito's wife for like 50 years. So she's been in a bunch of stuff that he makes.
Next on our list, this one's near and dear to us because he's from the animated series. Matt Lancer, April 1st. He voices Anakin Skywalker in the Clone Wars and Rebels. Next on the list is David Oyelowo, April 1st. He plays Agent Callus in Rebels, who we're going to get a lot more character development for soon in the upcoming seasons. A lot of good stuff for Callus. If you don't already like him, you're going to absolutely love him. Getting back to Obi-Wan Kenobi, we have Sir Alec Guinness, April 2nd. He plays the original Obi-Wan Kenobi, or Ben Kenobi, in the original Star Wars trilogy. Obviously, he's no longer with us, but still celebrating his birthday nonetheless.
I guess I didn't know that both Obi-Wan's birthdays were so close together, within 2 days apart. Yeah.
That's kind of crazy, right?
Yeah.
It was like on point with character.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, here's the biggest one for everybody in Hollywood, I guess you could say, these days.
The man of the hour, you would say.
The man of the hour, Pedro Pascal, April 2nd. He plays Din Djarin in The Mandalorian. Nothing more needs to be said about his contributions to everything in Hollywood at the moment, including Star Wars. Next on the list, Ben Mendelsohn. He plays our favorite villain in a lot of things.
Yeah.
April 3rd, but more specifically in Star Wars, director Krennic from Rogue One.
Love that mush-mouth bastard. He's great in everything.
Seriously. Yeah. Next on the list, the smooth Billy D. Williams, April 6th. He plays Lando Calrissian. As we said recently, or not so recently on one of our podcasts, he basically plays Lando in everything Star Wars that's not Solo.
Absolutely.
Donald Glover. Yeah. Here's a cool one that everybody I'm sure is excited for at the moment. Katie Sackhoff, April 8th. She both voices and plays Bo-Katan Kryze in live action and animated Star Wars in Clone Wars, Rebels, and The Mandalorian.
Right.
And we'll get more into her in a bit as we kind of talk about The Mandalorian. But what a standout role she's had this season. And last but certainly not least, the controversial name of this episode, Daisy Ridley, April 10th. She plays the Rey Skywalker in the sequel trilogy and the upcoming new Jedi Order film.
Happy birthday to all of them. Okay, so as we said earlier, we were dropping some love on old Pedro Pascal. Let's talk Mando. We are 6 episodes into an 8-episode season, which is kind of sad. I guess I forgot that the last 2 were 8. So I'm like, okay, this one's got to be 10 at least, right? Nope, it's going to be 8. Yeah. So there's only 2 more episodes left. But what do you think so far of this season?
I think so far, everything that I said before we got into it, where I stated, I think this is finally going to be the season where we get really far into Mandalorian culture, plot advancement, story advancement. I think it's like blown expectations for me. I think this is the best season of The Mandalorian. It's not about Grogu. It's about, the Mandalorian culture.
And it's not even about Din Djarin either.
That's what I was about to say next. It's about Bo-Katan Kryze.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. It's almost like if they they kept the same title of the show, right?
Right.
But it's a twist on words the way they've always done in Star Wars, like Return of the Jedi, The Last Jedi. This one's like The Mandalorian, but the Mandalorian they're speaking about is Bo-Katan.
Yes, exactly. So I really dug that. I kind of saw it as a way also like maybe Pedro Pascal only wanted to do 3 seasons, so with that title and with introducing that whole other world of the Mandalorian culture, it could just keep going with another Mandalorian. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. And I love that they're basically elevating this character because I felt like she's always taken an unfair backseat in the animated series.
Yeah.
She was the sister of Duchess Satine, so that was her in the Clone Wars. She was like the traitor with Death Watch, so to say, or I forget the name of that, a clan that she's in. And then Owls. Even in Rebels, the Night Owls, there you go. And even in Rebels, she's given the Darksaber by Sabine, and she's hesitant to take it because she feels like she can't lead. And then sure enough, when she shows up in The Mandalorian, it's confirmed. Like, she wasn't able to unite the clans of Mandalore. But this season's proving to be otherwise. We're like, right off the bat, she's the chosen one to basically see the mythosaur, which is, as we find out, it's not something that any Mandalorian has ever seen, so much that they literally thought it was a myth living up to its mythosaur name.
Right.
So you can kind of see the writing on the wall who the heir to, you know, to Mandalore is. And I love that the show is going that direction. Not to mention, because we haven't gotten to talk about it, the Purgle, but we've spoken about so much in this show because it's a Rebels thing. The Purgle showing up, what was in the first episode?
Yeah, that was really cool.
That was super cool. I remember, like, when I saw it, I was like super hyped to tell you, hey. But you're like, I haven't seen it yet, and I knew you were sick or rather recovering, so I knew you were gonna watch it on your schedule.
Right.
And then let's not forget the person that we've been wanting to see how he was gonna look, Zeb from Rebels.
That was probably one of my most hyped moments from this season so far. As soon as I saw him like waddling in, I'm like, whoa, because that can't be him. Is that sure enough? I heard the voice.
Exactly.
Dude, that was awesome.
That was a conversation I had with my friends, because my buddy right off the bat was like, is it Zeb? Because they didn't say it. I was like, dude, it's Steve Blum. That's his voice. Like, exactly. They would not have the exact actor that voices him in Rebels to voice him if it wasn't Zeb. Mind you, I didn't actually watch the Mando credits. I kind of watched those not animated credits, but like the fancy credits, but I skipped the ones that are fast paced at the end, and sure enough, his name was on there. I just didn't actually pause to watch it, but I didn't care. I knew it was him. Yeah,
exactly. So that gives me hope that he might show up in the Ahsoka trailer too. I mean, the Ahsoka series too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for sure we get the rest of the Ghost crew. What I would kill to see if there was like a flashback or a HoloNet recording of Kanan, and it's like, it's funny you say that, because I got into this I got into this Facebook argument with somebody on one of the on one of the posts, because they were like, it was after the episode aired, after the trailer dropped for Ahsoka, and someone mentioned like, I really hope we get to see some sort of a flashback of Kanan, and then some jackhole was like, yeah, but as long as it's not Freddie Prinze Jr. who plays him. And I was like, what? Why? How could you? Why would he not play him? You know, it's not like I don't know. But then we went back and forth, and then we finally conceded and whatever. So it doesn't matter. I won the argument. That's all I know, because you agree with me. So that's all that matters. It has to be Freddie Prinze Jr. just in case. Yeah. In that case, like, you know how I always put so much emphasis on the Rise of Skywalker scene when I hear Kanan's voice telling Rey, in the heart of a Jedi lies her strength. Like, come on. That's basically telling me if Kanan was live action, that it has to be Freddie Prinze Jr. Exactly. So anyway, okay, so we got, like Pete said, we got 2 more episodes of Mandalorian left. We will get more into depth on the episode analysis for each one on our upcoming recordings, because we plan on being weekly recording back once again. Yep. Yeah. Okay, so I think that brings us to the end of the This Week in Star Wars segment, correct? Any other business? Current business? Nope. Okay. I'm ready to get back to Rebels. Yeah, absolutely. All right, then. If nothing else, then Rolly, why don't you give us a synopsis of this week's episode? So in this week's episode, the Rebels finally locate a potential site for a secret base, but find their new home is not as isolated as originally believed. Okay. So getting back to it, the show opens with Hera and Sabine. They've been in contact with Rex, who are making supply runs to the new Phoenix Squadron base on Atollon. Is that correct? Atollon? Atollon? Atollon. At least that's how I pronounce it. Okay. So the two of them make their way to the cargo hold, where they find Kanan and Ezra lightsaber sparring. And believing he has bested Kanan, Ezra has his blade pointing at Kanan's neck. However, Kanan tells him it is a tie, as he has his blade pointed at Ezra's chest. So it was kind of a weird way to start, because you could sense some tension going in when they go in and they see them. They called it practicing, but it was more intense. The way it was animated, you could tell that they were going a little bit harder, and we find out why they're training so hard, and take it from there. Yeah, so just to get into a little bit of dialogue on that scene, Ezra says, "Tied again?" And Kanan responds, "There's no such thing as a tie. You lose, you die." And Ezra says, "Yeah, and you win by killing an Inquisitor." And And Kanan goes, no, you win by surviving. Sabine chimes in and says, you two are getting pretty good. And Ezra says, getting? Are you saying we weren't good before? And Hera says, I think she just meant you're even better now. So they continue sparring, and Kanan shouts at Ezra to never turn his back on the enemy as the two continue their training. Hera looks on with encouragement, but she also has this look on her face of a lot of concern. And we find out very soon why that is. So the team arrives back at Chopper Base, which they don't really mention that, but I'm going to call it that the rest of the episode because it's in the title.
That's
the Mystery
true.
of Chopper Base, and they do say it going forward. It's just in this episode they don't refer to it as that. So the team arrives at Chopper Base as Rex updates the team on all the upgrades being made to the base, including sensor markers that are currently being placed around the perimeter for the security of the squadron. And these are basically just kind of like poles that alert if anybody's broken, I guess like a security breach of the base.
Right.
So it's just basically fancy flag poles or whatever you want to call them.
Yeah, it just looks like little antennas.
Yeah, there you go. So he also informs the team that his scouts have found a water source underground, obviously to supply the rebel base. And then the scene then cuts to a rebel pilot named Lieutenant Dicer, and she's placing a sensor at one of the base boundaries, only to shortly be attacked by a Krykna, which is basically a large spider-type creature native to Adelon. I think we've seen this creature actually in, I believe it was season 2 of The Mandalorian, where Din Djarin crash lands on like an ice planet.
Good point.
I don't remember if they ever confirmed it was the same type of creature, but I'm pretty sure it's the same family species, so to say.
Yeah, like a spider with kind of a spider crab kind of a creature. So
yeah, that's a good way of putting it, like a spider crab. So after that, back at the base, Hera expresses her concern, that we were kind of getting hints of from the beginning of the episode to Kanan about them leaving the team and going after the Inquisitors. So Kanan says, I can't believe it's all finally coming together. Ships, pilots, a base, everything you need. And Hera goes, except you and Ezra. So when do you leave? And Kanan responds, as soon as Ahsoka gets back. We can't run from the Inquisitors forever. And Hera responds, I figured it was something like that with all that training. Kanan says, Hera, what you've accomplished here is important. I understand that now. The need for you to be part of a larger rebellion. I'm behind you, but none of it will matter if we don't do what we need to do. So they end the conversation like that, but you can kind of tell Hera's still not convinced that them leaving is the best idea. But
there's definitely some friction. Yeah,
a lot of friction, especially since they're silent star-crossed lovers, so to say.
Right.
So back at the command center, Sabine and Rex receive word that Lieutenant Dicer has not returned, nor have they received any communication from her. So Hera proceeds to dispatch them to take the Phantom to Dicer's last known location on the northern perimeter and locate her. So back on the Ghost, Ezra is looking for Zeb. They don't really explain why. I think he just wants to say his goodbyes to his friend. I think he voices concern of that in the upcoming conversation with them. But he runs into Chopper, and Chopper's kind of like chasing down those like crab-like crustaceans, whatever, that are on the ship. Of course, he's just like getting into all sorts of trouble like he usually does. Just screwing around, yeah. But Chopper points him in the direction of a nearby cliff where Zeb is seated listening to music.
This was a very interesting scene.
Yeah.
It was just felt so out of place. Like it didn't seem like it fit with everything we've seen between those two, the interactions between these two characters, A, and B. It just kind of like felt different. So I don't know, I'm
glad that you said that, because I was kind of get something like that. But like, I know you're like a huge like rock fan.
Yeah.
And the vibe I got from this scene was like, it's just the guys outside having a beer, listening to rock music, reminiscing about old times.
Yeah. And like the music that you normally hear in Star Wars it doesn't sound anything like what Zeb was playing off of his radio. So that was also interesting too.
Yeah, I thought it was a really, really cool, like out of Star Wars world type vibe, but that totally fit the vibe of what was going on in the episode. So I thought it was super cool to get out of that, that Star Wars mentality here for this brief second. But anyways, the conversation they have basically goes, Ezra says, "What are you doing out here, big guy?" And Zeb says, "Oh, hey Ezra, just getting a little fresh air and privacy. Hey, pull up a crate, watch the sunset." And Ezra proceeds to get into his feels and says, "We're going to be leaving soon, Kanan and me." And Zeb goes, "Yeah, I figured. Going after the Red Blades, huh?" And Ezra goes, "Yeah, I don't know when we'll be back or if we'll be back." And Zeb says, hey, bad luck to talk like that. You'll be back. Of course, we'll probably have toppled the Empire by then. We can swap war stories." And Ezra says, "It's a deal." So after that scene, we cut to Sabine and Rex as they've arrived to the northern perimeter. But unfortunately, they're only able to locate Dicer's helmet. So it seems that the Kryknas, the spiders, have taken her. And as soon as they kind of come to this realization that she was taken, they themselves begin getting attacked by Krykna as well. And what ends up happening is Rex actually gets captured by the Krykna, which I found really strange. This guy is the Clone Wars commander,
right?
And he just fell so easily to these spiders. But Sabine is able to actually defend herself successfully as Rex is taken. So as she's kind of taking what's up?
I was just gonna say, like, what I didn't like about the scene was we figured out their weak point, which is you have to shoot their eye out. But like both a Clone Wars veteran and a Mandalorian badass could not. They kept firing and just missing all over the eyes. That
they suddenly like turned into stormtroopers, right?
Right, just a little bit. But I guess you had to advance the story a little bit. I get it. I'll give him a pass.
Yeah, I agree. I thought the same thing. So Sabine is kind of trying to hide out from the spiders. She does contact the Ghost to get, to ask for backup, and the Ghost does end up arriving. And now that Rex and Lieutenant Dicer are both gone, the team decides to head into the underground tunnels that the Krykna come out of to look for Rex and Dicer. So as they get down there, Kanan tells the team they need to split up, and he proceeds to try to send Ezra with Hera, but Hera kind of interjects and says, "No, that's not going to happen. You and Ezra go together, me, Sabine, and Zeb will go together." So that friction that we mentioned before kind of continues just into that one scene. Kanan doesn't argue it, but he knows what's going on. And as they're walking their two separate tunnels, I think Sabine asks a question and Hera basically tells her, "We have to learn to do it on our own because they're not going to be with us anymore."
Yeah, Zeb asks, like, shouldn't we at least have one Jedi on our team or something like that?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, because if you have two Jedi, it just makes more sense, right? Mm-hmm. 1 and 1. Okay. So after that brief conversation, we see Ezra and Kanan walking down their tunnel, and they're kind of like immediately attacked by a Krykna. Right. And it's a cool, interesting scene. Ezra kind of attempts to force connect with it like he has with every other creature that we've seen so far. Kanan's kind of like skeptical of like what is Ezra doing, which I thought was kind of weird, but I'm thinking that it has something to do with the fact that I guess like the naturally aggressive, or I don't know what else I'm trying to think, maybe like non-mammal, or like, let's just say insects, right? That you can't really force connect with like an aggressive type creature like that in the Star Wars universe. That's kind of like the thought I got from Kanan, because I was like, why isn't he even letting Ezra try on this one? But it's whatever. I didn't get my question answered. I don't feel like this episode, but it is what it is, as they say, as much as I hate that phrase. So he unsuccessfully is unable to tame it. But nonetheless, they just power through because they're force wielding lightsaber duelists that can cut through anything, particularly these creatures. So after that, we cut to Hera, Sabine, and Zeb, who are going down their tunnel, and they actually stumble onto a lair with several of the spider eggs. When they get to that lair, they hear Rex's voice, and sure enough, he's being held captive by a Krykna that's actually sleeping, and it's got like its legs dangling from the ceiling, where it's got a firm grip on Rex. The team is actually able to pry him loose, but they're still unable to locate Dicer. So I'm sure they had intent to look for him more, but shortly after, they proceed to get attacked by several Krykna, and fortunately, Ezra and Kanan show up to save them, but they're just outmatched and outnumbered at this point. So the team begins to flee and make their way back to the surface to rendezvous with Chopper and the Ghost. So the team makes it back to the surface, and they immediately board the Ghost and attempt to take off. But they soon realize that the Ghost has become glued down by the Krykna's webs, which I thought was kind of funny, but it's got to be some pretty damn strong webbing to keep that entire ship down.
Right.
So as a temporary defense, they try to fend off the Krykna with the ghost as weapons, the large blasters that it carries. But they immediately become overwhelmed and overrun by the spiders. One Krykna is even like trying to break into the ghost itself, and Rex is struggling. I guess he's just having an off day in this episode. He's struggling to keep this one Krykna out of the ghost.
Yeah.
So they quickly realize that their only way to escape is to go outside and cut down the webs so that the ghost can take off and they can get the hell out of there. But they're reluctant to do so given the fact that they're in such, a large amount of danger with all the spiders around them. I don't remember how exactly, but amidst all that chaos, Sabine basically realizes that the Krykna don't like the sensor markers. I think she's kind of observing one in the distance, and they're kind of like, they go around it in fear. They kind of like tremble. So she basically suggests using the sensor marker, to fend off the spiders while the rebels free the ghost to escape. And I think the insight for her basically came because earlier in the episode, when Rex got taken, she was actually seeking refuge right next to the marker.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's what allowed her to not be captured by the Kraken also. So I guess she somehow remembered that and put two and two together and created that plan, be it a dangerous plan. Right. So the team exits the ghost with the intent that Sabine's going to go get the marker, which is kind of hard to do with all the Krykna in between her and the marker. So Kanan and Ezra create like a separate plan where they're basically going to launch Sabine with the force towards the marker.
Right.
She sticks the landing, gets the marker, brings it back, saves the ghost. Easy peasy, right? Well, right before they launch her, Sabine makes a comment and says, "This is when I wish I had a jetpack so that she could just do it herself," which I thought was a cool hint at what's to come. Like, there's obviously a piece of armor she's missing, a crucial piece of armor, and that's her Mandalorian jetpack. So I know that was kind of a bit of a foreshadowing, right, for what's to come. So nonetheless, the two Jedi launch her towards the marker, and of course, wouldn't you know it, they overshoot her. So she basically almost goes flying off a cliff. But since this is Rebels, and we're certainly not going to have a Mandalorian die just like that, she's able to just catch the ledge and pull herself out before a larger Krykna actually attempts to attack her and eat her. So she pulls herself out of the cliff. She grabs the marker, and sure enough, she heads back to the ghost. And when she arrives, Kanan and Ezra proceed to cut the ghost loose, and the team is able to take off back to the base safely. And on their way back, Rex sees it as kind of like a big defeat because now he's thinking that the base is compromised. They need to move yet again. So he suggests reporting back to Commander Sato that the base isn't safe. But Hera, she's just not ready to give it up just yet, given everything that they've gone through to secure a base. And Hera says, "No, it took everything we had just to find this place. I'm not ready to give it up." And Kanan chimes in and says, "We're not going to. The rebellion needs this base, and we're going to do whatever it takes to keep it." So back at the base, Sabine and Kanan watch as the fence of sensor markers is, finalized. And Sabine suggests that Kanan go talk to Hera, as she was worried about never seeing them again. Obviously, there's still a lot of unanswered tension that Sabine knows Kanan needs to address with Hera.
Right.
And Sabine tells him, "You'd better go talk to Hera." And Kanan says, "Why? What's wrong?" And Sabine yells at him and says, "Kanan, wake up. She might agree with your mission, but you're still walking out, and you're taking Ezra with you." So he goes to Hera, and Hera tells him, "I told the commander the site is secure and operations can resume." And Kanan kind of changes the subject immediately and says, "We're going to be okay. You know that, right?" And Hera goes, "You realize I know when you're lying, right? Whatever you're facing, I wanted us to face it together." And Kanan says, "We'll see each other again. I promise." So I thought that was going to be the ending of the show. Turns out we get another cool ending that's going to allude to the season finale that we're about to see in the next two episodes. So after that, we cut to Ezra, and he's kind of sitting at the perimeter, still attempting to force connect with the Krykna that are kind of like surrounding the chopper base. But he still is not having any luck. So he kind of just lays back on the sand to chill. He's kind of venting frustration, just relaxing. And it's a cool scene because he looks up to the sky and he sees a convor, which is like an owl in Star Wars universe, a specific owl that we're always going to see going forward, it has a name. Its name is Mirai, and that is basically the creature that channels the daughter of the Force that we've seen from Clone Wars, which we'll get into more, I think, in this season finale. But basically, that owl, Mirai, is Ahsoka's companion. So sure enough, after we see Mirai, Ahsoka shows up, and she's kind of looking over down at Ezra. And Ahsoka says, I see the base is coming along nicely. And Ezra says, yeah, these creatures almost ruined it though. No matter what I do, I can't seem to connect with them. And Ahsoka says, in my experience, just when you think you understand the Force, you find out how little you actually know. And Ezra says, I don't think I ever understood the Force to begin with, which I thought was a really funny line.
Yeah.
And Ahsoka says, we should get going. And then the show ends with the camera panning out, and we see Mirai again, just kind of soaring over the sky. And I took that as foreshadowing for events to come, because we know it's coming, but we're not going to talk about it.
Right.
Right.
We can't just spoil that just yet. So we do have a really cool it's like a 2-part season finale for coming up.
Yes.
And so that would be episode 21 and 22 or something like that. I believe so.
Yes.
Okay. So
that's correct.
So we will talk about that coming up. But yeah, that was the end of it was a fun little episode. There was a lot of stuff that had to happen in order to get to these next two, and it was all nicely put together in this one little 22-minute chunk. So I enjoyed it, and it sounds like you enjoyed it too.
Absolutely.
Right. So that brings us to the end of this episode, and that also brings us to the end of Good Morning Lothal, the unofficial Star Wars Rebels podcast. So I want to thank everyone for joining us, for coming back and sticking with us. Thank you. If you're still subscribed, you saw this pop up on your feed, and if you know somebody who might appreciate it, please share it with them. Any closing comments, Rolly?
No, just excited to be back. I hope you listeners out there and viewers, have stuck through with us. Hope you didn't hit the unsubscribe button. And I hope to see you guys' comments. I hope for us to get a discussion going with all these episodes, and particularly with this season 2 finale that we're going to get into here in the next couple of weeks. Thanks for being patient with us, guys.
Yes, especially thank you for being patient with me as well, Rolly. I really appreciated that you you still wanted to do this, and you still wanted to hang out with us every week. So next week we'll be talking about season 2, episode 21. It's called Twilight of the Apprentice Part 1. So it's part 1 of the season 2 finale. But until then, this has been your host, Pete Salas, along with
Rolando Zamora,
saying, may the Force be with you always, and goodbye from Lothal.